ever stopped. I know the immunology is totally different, but I wonder if there had been so many public partnerships, if there had been so much emphasis on NGOs, et cetera, if we'd ever gotten rid of smallpox in the 1960s. Anyway, I'm as a student of the behavior and misbehavior of institutions, this mosaic really gives me, says chills up my spine. Anyway, Isola, did you want to chime in here? No. Okay. Folks, the floor is yours. Yes. You know, if you guys were up front, I wouldn't have to pass you the microphone. But if you're going to stay in the back there, I'm going to have to give this to you. Why don't a couple of you take the floor?
Thank you very much. Very informative presentations, especially the graphics. But to the first speaker, I was wondering, when you indicated that there's such a low incidence in Cuba compared with some of the other Caribbean countries with which it has so much in common, and particularly with the Dominican Republic, which is almost an identical country, what have you learned from this comparison to be able to help some of the other countries like Suriname and Bahamas to reduce the high rate of HIV and AIDS? And to the other gentleman, you talked about the pharmaceuticals, the pharmaceutical companies. Now, the way I understand it, bringing down the cost of the appropriate medicine is one of the most effective ways, bringing medicine to the poor. How did the Bill Gates Foundation work in collaboration? What's the connection between the two? What's the relationship? Because the Bill Gates Foundation is a non-profit, and all the pharmaceuticals are for-profit. How did that synergy work between both of them? So there's two questions.
Why don't you start?
Yes, muchas gracias por su pregunta. As we say it in Cuba and in the Dominican Republic. No, I think the similarity between the two countries, which we have said, for example, the Dominican Republic and Cuba, is much more the language that is there. However, I believe Cuba's success was due to two things. One is that politically, they have been open about the issue at the beginning already. And they have put in place things which are necessary. Some have called them against human rights. Some have called them coercion. Some have called them jail. But they have put something in place which has really helped them to cope with the issue at the beginning already. But if you look at the other countries, such as the Bahamas, or as I have said, specifically the case of the Bahamas, there are many, many things which are contributing to certainly the explosion. One is the Haitian migration, which is playing a role in the local epidemic, because we know that, for example, 25% of people living with HIV/AIDS in the Bahamas are really coming from Haiti. And the second point, which is important, is they have used the medical approach, and still they're using the medical approach. I have to admit it. I've appreciated some of what they have done, but the reality is they have really been using that medical approach to try to try to address this issue, and it didn't work. Their prevention programs have not really been reaching the most difficult to reach, and that is a serious challenge which certainly we have to take into consideration. And the case of Suriname is the same scenario. Disorganization, medicalized approach, and it is really not getting the product which we have to get. However, before giving the microphone to my colleague, I would like to say that one of the contributions which UNH has had also was really to negotiate, help countries to negotiate with WHO, to negotiate actually to get the price of antiretrovirals going down, and the 3x5 process has really helped us to move all over the place in the world to really increase the coverage in terms of treatment for people living with HIV/AIDS. And I think that has been a good catalyst between civil society, UN, to really make sure that they can put pressure on pharma to really bring the prices down. And that is certainly a success story which we have to mention.
Yeah, I can just follow up on that because, I mean, one of the things that happened in the 1990s was the development of antiretroviral drugs, ARVs, that could prolong the life and make life more comfortable for infected persons. And the price of those were outrageously high. And the fight against Big Pharma was I mean, and it's a very long story, but it came part of the fight was carried out in the World Trade Organization because it fell under the TRIPS agreement, the agreement on intellectual property rights, and the big U.S. pharma had lobbied to have that included in the TRIPS agreement, and there was a lot of pressure on developing countries who were really against it, but that's a very long story. But what happened, I mean, it was, first of all, there was a very good mobilization of NGOs around the world on the access movement. And UNAIDS had started its HIV drug access initiative. A number of NGOs, including Médecins Sans Frontières, they took some of the money that they got as a Nobel Peace Prize and started this access campaign, and which was successful in the end, and it was also fought out locally, especially in South Africa and Brazil, where in South Africa the government had a bill to get forced licensing or whatever it's called, where you could go beyond the TRIPS agreement and force the pharmaceuticals to have lower prices and so on. In the end, I think this coordinated campaign from and at various levels, many actors managed to blame and shame the pharmaceuticals. And they came to the conclusion, they discontinued a court case in South Africa, and you could say that they learned a lesson that they cannot fight against, and the World Bank was there also, because the World Bank was buying these medicines to give as part of assistance to developing countries, and they were interested in lower prices. So they are on board, cooperating more than before. They lost the fight. Whether or not this, I mean, there is one negative consequence of this we should bear in mind. It is that pharmaceuticals are not putting as much effort into developing new HIV medicine as they did earlier, because they are not seeing this as a good investment anymore. That's the flip side of it.